And now I will give the floor to Mr. A. Maftuchan, who is the Executive Director of Prakarsa, a Jakarta-based civil society organization, think tank on fiscal, social, and sustainable development issues. Maftuchan is also the co-coordinator of Tax and Fiscal Justice Asia, a regional Asian network of civil society organizations campaigning for fiscal transparency and tax justice. He is a member of the coordinating committee of the Global Alliance for Tax Justice. Maftuchan will reflect on why it is necessary to tax wealth and on the improvements in quality and distributive justice that this implies. He will also give us his vision of the role that UN and ECOSOC could play.
Excellency Vice President of ECOSOC and Chair of this meeting, Excellency Member of Delegation of the UN Member State, Excellency panelists, distinguished participants, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for having me today. It is my honor to speak in the panel at the 2024 ECOSOC Special Meeting on International Cooperation in Tax Matters. Excellency Chair, ladies and gentlemen, why do we need wealth tax? We need wealth tax to increase equity and distributive justice. The concentration of wealth in a few individuals can bring negative consequences for social economic well-being. Wealth tax can enhance social contract, tackle the existing asymmetric taxation system, foster a fair, inclusive economy, reduce income gap, and reduce social economic disparity. We need a wealth tax to increase public revenue for public services and financing for development, including financing for sustainable development goals. The pandemic induced economic downturn, lower tax revenue, and increased fiscal deficit. However, many countries learn on regressive indirect taxes for recovery instead of taxing the wealthy. Wealth tax is part of extensification of the tax base to finance essential services and alleviate debt to imperative to avoid disproportionate effect on the poor. A wealth tax is levied on an individual's net worth, calculated by subtracting liabilities from the total value of assets. Wealth tax is applied to the holding of wealth, transactions involving transfer of wealth and appreciation of wealth stemming from capital gains. Tax on net worth are derived from taxes on a number of assets, including but not limited to bank saving, bank deposit, share, estimated property values, etc. Taxes on transfer of wealth are imposed on inheritance, donation, and grants, while taxes on wealth are imposed on capital gains. So wealth tax is also necessary because the tax burden asymmetry of active and passive income. This inequality of tax rate on active income and passive income is contrary to the principle of the burden of tax collection. The higher the income, the higher the tax charge. An ultra-rich person pays more taxes than a worker in nominal term, but the worker bear a heavier tax burden than the ultra-rich. Although most countries use a progressive taxation system, the application is still asymmetric. Active and passive income are treated by different tax systems. Unlike active income, passive income is primarily the subject of final income tax. The difference in the range of tax rate on active and passive income reflect the inequality in tax rate. For example, in Southeast Asia, tax rate on active income range from 5 until 35%, while passive income range from 0.1 until 20%. Introducing a wealth tax on the wealthy presents a huge revenue potential. it would be ideal and impressive if the wealth tax is implemented in a straightforward scenario, applying to net individual wealth annually, progressively, with the highest rate being 10%. I demand the UN and member states to formulate a policy on wealth tax. The proposed wealth tax structure entails a progressive rate of 1 until 2% applied to a net worth exceeding 1 until 5 million US dollar, 3% applied to net worth exceeding 6 until 10 million US dollar, 4% applied to net worth exceeding 11 until 30 million US dollar, 5% applied to a net worth exceeding 31 until 100 million US dollar, 10% applied to a net worth exceeding 101 million US dollar above. The wealth tax is to be levied annually, attributed to the taxpayer representing the entire family. Excellency, the Chair, ladies and gentlemen, the opponents of wealth tax often argue that implementing wealth tax can cause capital flight, investment behavior disincentive, and higher tax evasion, tax avoidance practices. As a matter of fact, these problems are more likely to occur in the presence of tax haven countries rather than in countries that implement wealth tax. This is the reason why we support the inclusion of wealth tax in the UN Tax Convention. The opponents of wealth tax forgot the global consensus on taxing the income and wealth of the richest. The Addis Ababa Action Agenda recognizes the need to build a progressive tax system that promotes fairness. The UN must support countries in building fairer, more progressive tax system that reduce inequality by taxing the income and wealth of the richest. The ECOSOC must facilitate learning hub among member states to share experiences if they were to introduce wealth taxes so that they could design better. The better design could include a broader tax basis, measure to reduce valuation costs and liquidity risk, and tile provision. The UN must ensure the tax transparency standard in the United Nations Framework Convention on International Tax Cooperation because it can enhance countries' ability to tax capital income and asset. This standard essentially means that information on foreign financial assets is shared between tax authorities globally, making it harder for taxpayers to evade taxation by concealing asset overseas. The Chair, ladies and gentlemen, together with other civil society organizations across the globe, the Prakarsa with the Global Alliance for Tax Justice, TAFJA, and others network advocate tax justice. The Prakarsa also advocate for the wealth tax issue through Civil 20. We are arguing the G20 leader to implement the wealth tax during Indonesia presidency 2022 and during India presidency 2023. And we will continue during Brazil presidency 2024. The Prakarsa is open to collaboration with UN and stakeholders to advocate the wealth tax globally. The development of wealth tax as a global policy is needed. The process to become more open and involve the participation of stakeholders and member countries, especially developing countries and non-state actors. Finally, this all from my side. Excellency, Vice President of ECOSOC and Chair, I thank you.
Thank you very much, Maftuchan. We have heard 4 excellent presentations.